Hello Legionnaires, this is Max the Owl from Legion Myth, and today I'm going to provide you a general 10,000 foot overview regarding adepts and disciplines in the Earthdawn role-playing game. Please pardon my camera and the chroma key effect, there's something going on, but I still wanted to record this today, so please pardon the video if it's bothering you, just listen to what I have to say and look away. Okay. So, and there are 4 or 5 editions of Earthdawn, depending on how you consider the 3rd edition, revised, red brick editions of the game. You may be wondering what edition of Earthdawn I'm discussing. Well, disciplines haven't changed too much between 1st and 4th edition of the game, and I couldn't care less how the Pathfinder or Savage Worlds edition handle adepts and disciplines, because I don't consider that real Earthdawn. So, nearly everything I discuss will be good across the editions. Okay, I know some will argue that the later editions of Earthdawn may have become a little more lenient or open-minded as to what constitutes playing within the vision of a discipline. I personally believe the core concept of what a discipline is remains the same across all editions, while also allowing for both variations on a theme and staying true to what makes a discipline unique. So, I like to start with what something is before I get into what something is not, but in this case, I really feel the need to hammer home what a discipline is not. And that is, disciplines are not simply character classes, professions, or archetypes from other game systems. Disciplines in Earthdawn go much deeper than I use a sword and wear armor, or I pick pockets and burglarize joints. As in nearly every tabletop RPG, anyone can pick up a sword and swing it. How well you fare in combat with that sword is usually a matter of natural ability or attributes, training and experience, situational awareness, and, let's be honest, some luck. This is true in Earthdawn as well. Any character can spend weeks, months, and years in training in the use of a sword as a skill. Said character can even join an adventuring troop to become a swordsman of some renown. In fact, in Earthdawn, many non-adepts and adepts of disciplines who don't specialize in swordsmanship do take the time to train in melee combat because it's so integral to the life of an adventurer. Never underestimate the seasoned or skilled veteran, even if he isn't a disciplined adept. So what is a discipline? If a discipline isn't merely a profession or a character class, what separates a disciplined adept from a skilled character, one who may be an experienced frontline soldier in the Theran legions? First and foremost, a discipline represents more than just training. As mentioned before, the skilled character learns the art of swordsmanship over time. Practice, along with natural aptitude, determine the extent of the character's ability with a sword. Every maneuver is examined, coached, learned, and practiced within the rules of the mundane physical world. A discipline, on the other hand, is a particular mindset, a lifestyle. As I think every edition of the game states, a discipline is a metaphor for how the adept lives his life and sees the world. The adept doesn't simply learn what it means to be a swordmaster, but literally lives and breathes the lifestyle of the swordmaster discipline. In role-playing terms, the adept is the personification, the living embodiment of the discipline's metaphor. Now, that sounds fairly limiting. So there must be some advantage to being an adept over a skilled character, else why do it, right? Okay, I have to get this out of the way. Role-playing an adept is not nearly as limiting as some people like to believe. But I'll discuss that more specifically in future videos where I break down individual disciplines. For now, let's keep this generalized and generic. So in no particular order, here are the advantages to being an adept. First, instead of mundane skills bound to the realm of reality, an adept uses magical talents, which can and often do break the laws of reality. In Earthdawn, talents are the magically powered skills an adept uses to personify the metaphor of the discipline. True, for many adepts, the low circle talents of their chosen discipline seem to be little more than skills. As stated previously, anyone can learn how to use a sword. So what makes the sword master so special? Well, notwithstanding the talents a sword master will attain upon elevating higher circles, even the lowest circle swordmaster can empower her talents with karma. Adepts use karma to enhance their magical talents. In game mechanics terms, that means the Swordmaster rolls an additional die to increase the possibility of success for the action. Not even the most skilled, grizzled veteran can add karma dice to a skill check. Only an adept using a talent can do that. Now let's not get ahead of ourselves. Karma, especially at low circles, is limited. The adept will need to be judicious about its use, or the adept will find that he has no karma remaining. So how does the adept replenish this karma? Well, it's fairly simple in terms of game mechanics, but so important to the context of adepts, disciplines, and role-playing, a discipline adept in Earthdawn. Karma is replenished by the adept through a 30-minute meditative ritual where the adept mentally, spiritually, and physically maintains a connection to the deeper metaphor of the discipline. The Swordmaster, for example, engages in imaginary swordplay. Over the course of the 30-minute ritual, she becomes more and more vocal and acrobatic. At the completion of her ritual, she finds herself truly in tune with her discipline, and her magical talent improving karma is restored. So not only are these talents powered by magic, as long as the adept maintains the focus of the discipline, talents improve quicker than skills. Raising a skill is the culmination of time and practice. Raising a talent indicates a deeper understanding and connection to the discipline from which it derives. It takes weeks of training, as well as the cost of a trainer to raise a skill. It takes 8 hours to raise a talent. Next, adepts have an attribute called durability. In previous editions, durability was a talent the adepts would take and raise like any other. But in 4th edition, this is now a passive ability that every adept gets. When the adept raises to a new circle within his discipline, the character's durability increases both the death and unconsciousness ratings, the hit points, of the character. Lastly, adepts have an ability called thread weaving. The breadth and width of thread weaving could be, and probably will be, a video in and of itself. But in the simplest terms, thread weaving allows the adept to bind to magic items, to be able to use the full power of a magic sword, where a non-adept, in almost all cases, simply uses it as an everyday, common, garden variety sword. Thread weaving even allows an adept to bind himself to other players in the group, to increase the group's overall capability. We have to be careful not to go into too much detail here, but know that thread weaving is incredibly powerful and versatile. And a seemingly minor change to thread weaving in 4th edition has had a major impact on my games. All of that is well beyond the scope of this episode, but know that all adepts have access to the thread weaving talent. There we go. The last thing I want to mention about adepts and disciplines is in regard to personal visions and discipline violations. Understand that there is no one way to be a Beastmaster. There is no one way to be a warrior. It is up to the player to forge his own path within the discipline by creating a personal vision of what the discipline's metaphor means to the character. When I create my discipline-specific episodes, I'll have a segment specifically titled Variations on a Theme. Variations on a Theme will be where I discuss alternative methodologies and visions within the discipline that GMs and players may consider. These variations will not inherently violate the core values, the metaphor of the discipline, while showing that disciplines are not so hard-lined as to make every adept the same cookie-cutter character. With that said, there are near infinite ways to fit within a discipline's broad doctrine. There are not truly infinite ways to do so. It's not possible to be a pacifist warrior, a nethermancer who fears the dark, or a beastmaster who loathes animals. As far as I'm aware, later editions of Earthdawn have not reintroduced the idea of discipline violations and talent crises that existed in the 1st edition supplement book called The Adepts Way. I'm saddened by this. Discipline violations are the one or two, sometimes a small few, actions the character must avoid to remain true to the discipline. If one of these actions occurs, depending on the severity of the violation, the adept loses connection to the discipline and thus loses a number of dice when trying to perform its magical talents. For example, no matter the Beastmaster's personal vision, she may never bring deceit into her relationship with an animal. A Beastmaster adept who tricks her animals into sacrificing their lives or sells them to slavery for cruel masters can no longer rely on the power of her bond with the animals or her strength of will. Alright, so there you have it. The generic, broad-stroke definition of what a discipline is, and what it means to be an adept in the Earthdawn role-playing game. Coming soon will be discipline-specific episodes where I discuss the archer, the swordmaster, the elementalist, so on and so forth, each in greater detail. Until then, please subscribe to the Legion Myth channel and mash that bell icon. It really does help us out. We welcome your comments and questions, so please post them below and one of us will get back to you as soon as we can. And for live anime, comic, gaming, both video top and tabletop reviews and discussions, please be sure to watch the Legion Myth weekly live stream every Saturday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. I might even be on there on occasion discussing more Earthdawn or RPG topics. Alright, that is enough for me this episode. Really do appreciate you watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day.